Hi, I'm Chris Haigh and this is the Fiddle channel. Today I'm going to talk about the major blues scale. Now, if you've watched any of my jazz or rock videos, you'll know I talk a lot about the major blues scale and the minor blues scale. And I'm a bit of an oddity in that I do actually make a distinction between the two. This video is going to explain what I mean by the major blues scale, and I will do another one shortly on the minor blues scale, explaining why I think you should make a discrimination between the two. So I'm going to show you in various styles what the major blues scale is and how you can use it and what it sounds like in country, in jazz, in bluegrass and in blues itself. Guitarists, I know, have a different way of explaining blues, but this is a way that is logical to me and is very useful for the fiddle player, who I think approaches things in a slightly different way to the guitarist. So what we're doing is we're basing our scale on the in key of G, the G major pentatonic. It's obviously major because it's got a major third. The pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale which is missing the 4th and 7th degree of the scale. It's got a kind of a light and airy feel, and it's very melodic. It's very easy to make melodies out of the pentatonic scale. The major blues scale is that scale with the addition of a blue note, and the blue note is the flattened third. And I always recommend that you play the blue note and the natural third with the same finger. The reason being that you want to do quite a lot of sliding, which you can't do if you're using two separate fingers. So what this blue note is doing is adding a tension to the chord. It's adding a tension because it's trying to be minor over major, and this is something that in classical harmony would be a really bad thing to do, but in blues it's become an acceptable thing for the ear. And when you have a minor third, we tend to think of that as sounding sad, and we tend to think of the major as sounding happy. And what we got here is kind of like a switch, which is bending your mind into being happy and sad. And this is not just theory. I think this is real, and you can actually affect people's brains and souls by just messing around with that flattened third, which I think is fascinating. So when you're going up and down this scale, you want to pay more attention to that area. So it's not just a scale of equal notes. You want to pay more attention to that flattened third. The best way to learn these scales is first of all to play a single octave starting on the root. So in the key of G, that's what we're going to do, and that will fit over the 1, 4 and 5 chord. So let me just show you what I mean, and we'll use a bit of honky tonk country to demonstrate that. can see that it's a kind of a cheating approach, and it's a very simple approach, a simplistic approach, but it is a very good beginner's approach. And if you are new to improvising, then this is definitely the way to go. It's more interesting and it's more emotional than the pentatonic scale, and therefore is a lot better from that point of view. Now, having learnt what that sounds like, let's try doing the same thing in the key of D. So that's first position. You should be able to work out from that what are the notes higher up in first position and lower down in first position. So starting in the same place. Down. And just for satisfaction we go back to the root again. So I'll just give you that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a really good idea to memorize the fingerings that you will need for the most common major keys, such as G and D and A in particular. I suggest you try working this out, maybe writing it out in several different keys, just to show yourself that you really do understand it. And I do have on my Patreon page another video with several sheets, including a sheet of all of the common major blues scales, which you might find helpful if you join me on Patreon. So staying with the key of D but switching genres, let's try some gypsy jazz in D. First I'll go up and down the scale, and then I'll start to improvise using the scale. And again, it looks effortless, and it really is effortless once your fingers know where to go. I should point out that's a very easy kind of turnaround chord sequence, and you couldn't play that through a lot of jazz tunes, only the simplest ones. But there'll always be a place within a jazz tune where you can use it over some of the chords. Now let's switch to the key of A and to Bluegrass. So starting on an open A string. When you're doing any kind of country music with the major blues scale, then open string drones are going to work nicely. Let's try that with a bit of a bluegrass backing. So I've suggested that you learn the fingering for all of the common scales in first position, but it's really useful as well to be able to play in what I call closed position with no open strings. And if we try the key of E, starting with your first finger on the D string, and we avoid all the open strings, then what we get is this. Fourth finger there. And going all the way up, we get this. So no open strings, and that means that that set of fingerings can be moved up or down to different keys, providing you are starting with your first finger on the root. By placing your first finger in a different position to get the new root of the key, then you can use the same fingering for that scale. So now we're going to change genre to blues itself, a rocking 12-bar blues, and something you hope never to hear me say again. We're going to go up to the key of F sharp. So we're going to start off with our finger. That's the F sharp, first position. There is where we're going to put our first finger. I'm going to lock it across there and the C sharp note on the A string. Extend it up and down. And let's hear the 12-bar blues in F sharp. And if you thought that looked easy, it's because it is easy, and that is the most remarkable thing about this particular trick of using your first finger on the root and avoiding all of the open strings, that you can play in any key just as easily as any other key, which I think is a fantastic thing. So your long-term goal based around this lesson is for whatever key you're playing, you should be able to work out what is the major blues scale and easily find the fingering of it and decide, are you going to stay in first position, or if it's a difficult key, are you going to go into closed position higher up. On my Patreon page I do have a series of videos, what I call ear and finger training, where I use both the major and the minor blues scales, and I do backwards and forwards listening and repeating, which will help you to get your fingers around the different keys and the different blues scales. And as I said, I will do another video about the minor blues scale and you'll see the difference. I'll finish off with 3 times round this wonderful F sharp blues. Hope you enjoyed this. If you want a copy of the dots, then subscribe, send me an email, and I'll be very happy to send them to you. See you again soon.